As the master of ceremonies' voice dwindled into silence, I finally grasped the motive behind those discreet glances. In that charged moment, Connor, once designated to be my closest confidant, stood bathed in the spotlight at the heart of the stage, anxiously awaiting the arrival of Catherine, who would soon glide toward him. The delicate aroma of fresh blooms mingled with the air, nearly overwhelming my senses, while the resounding drum beats in the background seemed to mirror the relentless pounding of my heart. Thump, thump. I stared at the very man who only yesterday had confessed his love for me. Today he was gently clasping Catherine's hand and sharing a tender kiss. Half the audience was captivated by their union, while the remaining onlookers stole furtive looks in my direction. Amidst this picturesque, heart-stirring wedding, my impassive expression made me stand out like an unwelcome anomaly. I felt reduced to a mere gesture during what should have been a celebration of love. During his speech, Connor expressed gratitude to the guests, his friends, and his parents. The moment his words dwindled, his eyes locked onto me. Eliza, I've pondered this for a long time, and today I must confess, while I cherish every moment you've stood by my side, the woman I long to marry belongs to someone else. At these words, Catherine's eyes filled with tears as she exchanged a silent, enchanted look with him, lost in a world of their own. I snapped back to reality with a sinking realization that I should have departed long ago. Yet, when I attempted to rise, my body betrayed me, rendered immobile by an overwhelming tension. I was painfully aware that the instant I had taken my seat among the guests, I had unwittingly become the subject of whispered gossip. Nevertheless, I obstinately refused to reveal my inner torment. Moments later, as I struggled to compose myself, I heard Catherine begin her own address. At the conclusion of her remarks, she unexpectedly called out, "Eliza, I'm so sorry that fate has brought us together under these circumstances." It took me several seconds to process her words, and as I lifted my gaze, the confusion on my face was unmistakable. "Connor wanted to speak with you earlier," she continued softly, "but I halted him. He has always seen you as a sister, and I feared his words might inadvertently wound you." Fiona then launched into a lengthy series of thanks for gestures I could scarcely recall, while I stifled the raw ache in my chest, mustered a weak smile, and silently wished the couple a blissful marriage. Throughout the ceremony, familiar faces observed with pity and sympathy, their eyes laden with unspoken understanding of my predicament. It seemed that everyone knew of Fiona's hidden truth, except for me, who had been kept in the dark like a gullible pawn in a cruel game. When I finally gathered enough strength to stand, I clutched my phone and prepared to leave. Just then a voice called from behind. "Hey, you forgot your bag." I internally grimaced. That bag, a token from Connor, was a memento I no longer wished to handle. As I stepped out the doors, the cacophony of the wedding faded into the background. The bright sunlight assaulted my face, and the forced smile that had persisted until now crumbled into despair. Before I could retreat further into solitude, I heard, "You look terrible. Anyone would think you just emerged from a funeral." Startled by the unexpected remark, I turned to see Logan casually leaning against his car, puffing on a cigarette. In that moment, amidst the swirling chaos of my thoughts, I recalled why Logan had chosen not to enter the venue. He was highly allergic to pollen. Without hesitation, he offered me a ride. His words compelled me to accept, and I shifted into the passenger seat of his sleek sports car. Logan did not bother asking for my destination. He simply accelerated, and soon, the car was hurtling forward like a rocket. In the confined space of the speeding car, my anger, bitterness, and every negative emotion were gradually replaced by a paralyzing fear of an imminent accident. By the time Logan brought the vehicle to a stop, my mind had banished those dark thoughts to a distant corner. My hands trembled as I fumbled with my seatbelt, and as I stepped out, my legs buckled beneath me. I collapsed to my knees. "Did you really just attend a funeral?" Logan asked, kneeling beside me without a hint of judgment. I could see that my pallid complexion, reminiscent of a frightened ghost, belied the truth. I wasn't ready to embrace death just yet. "Were you in such a hurry to catch a flight or to leap into the next life?" He gently chided as he reached out and wiped away a stray tear from my eye. Only then did I realize that my tears were born of fear in that precarious adult world. A glance at his compassionate expression revealed that he cared about me after all. I wasn't unattractive and my figure was far from lacking. Yet there I was, clad in a form-fitting dress, seated on the ground, tears glistening in my eyes. So much so that it was impossible for any earnest, passionate young man not to be stirred by the scene. In that vulnerable moment, my pride, which had long acted as a barrier, suddenly crumbled and I blurted out, "Do you need someone by your side at this moment?" Hastily, I altered my choice of words, opting for something more ambiguous than girlfriend, fearful that he might think I was overstepping my bounds. Logan's dark, brooding look spoke volumes, yet he remained silent, instead offering his hand to help me up and gently brushing the dirt from my legs. No sooner had he assisted me than he scooped me up in his arms, and instinctively, I clung to his neck for support. The gesture felt as natural as if it were meant to be. In the midst of this, I failed to notice a brief pause in Logan's demeanor until I caught sight of a small airplane parked not far away, a subtle reminder of earlier events that now brought an odd smile to my lips. Before I knew it, we were aboard that same plane. The ride lasted about 40 minutes, during which I refrained from asking about our destination. Logan handed me a bag of clothes, and with the assistance of an affable flight attendant, I managed to freshen up with a quick shower. Strangely, since the moment I had stepped into Logan's car, thoughts of Connor had vanished from my mind. I even found myself admiring what many deemed the toy of a billionaire, a stark contrast to my own past when my family's status was considered on par with Connor's. I too was once seen as affluent, so it took someone of Logan's caliber, with a family legacy that spanned beyond ordinary wealth, to truly astonish me. Once the shower left me feeling renewed, a sudden wave of shame washed over me as I recalled how readily I had offered myself to Logan. I nearly forgot to breathe. "Are you planning to camp in here?" Logan asked abruptly as he knocked on the door. I slowly opened it, deliberately avoiding his searching gaze. "Are you truly still heartbroken over Connor's wedding?" he prodded, his tone laced with a mixture of curiosity and concern. His assumption startled me, and I vehemently shook my head. "Who's thinking about him?" "I was thinking about you." No sooner had the words left my lips than the room fell silent. I closed my eyes, regret piling upon regret, wishing I could simply vanish. Then, almost unexpectedly, I felt the warmth of another set of lips against mine. Logan's voice, soft and low, whispered, "I've been waiting years to hear you say that." So absorbed was I in deciphering his words that I barely registered his gentle pullback. His eyes held an intense, searching gaze as he murmured, "Is this all right?" Had I not been so close, I might have missed the quiet sincerity in his whisper. I felt a damp sensation near my mouth. As I licked my lips, I noticed a small spot, reminiscent of a signature kiss mark. Gathering my courage, I stood on my tiptoes and returned his kiss, only to feel unexpected resistance. Logan halted, and the pause stretched into what felt like an eternity. As I whimpered softly, pleading, "Please let me go," he responded with a fervent promise, "You'll never leave my side, not for a lifetime." In that moment, the tumultuous flight of emotions that had carried me seemed to dissipate, replaced by a strange clarity. I barely recalled the remainder of the flight until I awoke to the sight of lush greenery through the window, and, unbelievably, a giraffe ambling among the trees. Had it not been for the comforting arm wrapped around my waist, I would have believed it all to be a fantastical dream. Every movement sent a dull ache through my body, as though I had just completed a marathon. Gently, I nudged Logan's arm aside and rose to freshen up in the bathroom. Midway through brushing my teeth, the bathroom door unexpectedly swung open. The instant Logan caught sight of me, his tense expression relaxed, and he exhaled a sigh of relief. I couldn't help but notice faint red marks on his bare chest, a silent testament to recent struggles. Distracted for a moment, I inadvertently swallowed a foamy bit of toothpaste and nearly choked. "We haven't done enough, have we?" Logan teased, sending my face's temperature skyrocketing. By the time breakfast was served, I still wasn't ready to speak. "I'll introduce you to some people later," Logan said quietly as I finished eating. I studied him in confusion, but he remained cryptic about the identities of these guests. I had presumed they'd be mere acquaintances of his. Yet, when I saw his parents and grandfather, embarrassment washed over me. I felt as though I could vanish beneath the table. Despite the mortification, I mustered a slight pinch of resolve, silently reminding myself that Logan remained unfazed by the awkwardness, even managing to introduce me to his family with an affectionate arm draped around me. "This is the person I'm going to marry," he declared. Of everyone present, I was the one most taken aback by his announcement. Just yesterday, Logan and I had been barely acquaintances, and though that one night had been laced with intimacy, it hardly justified a wealthy heir deciding on a spouse so casually. And why, indeed, was I the one chosen, suddenly informed of this decision? I felt as though I were still trapped in a dream. Thanks to the life lessons I'd learned growing up, I managed to converse politely with Logan's family despite the shock. His parents, regular fixtures in financial publications and billionaire rankings, had initially seemed daunting, but after Logan introduced me, both greeted me with genuine warmth. His grandfather, who already knew me, was even more welcoming, though his demeanor shifted when he addressed Logan. "It took you this long to win back my granddaughter-in-law?" he chided, and I felt my cheeks burn with mortification. Logan even agreed with the admonishment, quietly accepting blame for having been too distracted by his studies. Throughout the meal, I learned that Logan had spoken of me to his family long before this day. Raised by his strict grandparents, both revered professors, and with his parents perpetually busy with work, Logan had grown up with firm expectations. He had planned to confess his love after graduation, but circumstances had intervened when Connor and I had been a couple during our sophomore year. Had it not been for the tragic accident that claimed my parents' lives the year I graduated, Connor and I might have been engaged by now. As the meal drew to a close, Logan's mother requested my contact details. That was when I suddenly recalled that my phone had long since died. Back at Logan's estate, as I recharged my phone, I contemplated discussing our evolving relationship. No sooner had I gathered my thoughts than my phone buzzed incessantly across the table. Logan's eyes remained fixed on the device, clearly preoccupied. A cascade of missed calls and messages lit up the screen. I could tell without looking that they were all about Connor's wedding. "Logan, why did you take me to meet your parents?" I demanded, desperate for clarity. Despite his previous actions speaking volumes, I yearned to hear him explain. "Why did you bring me to another country after I was publicly humiliated and introduce me to your family?" I pressed, the frustration bubbling within me. "What do you think?" Logan finally countered, leaning back in his chair so that the faint glow of the backlight obscured his expression. I remained silent, paralyzed by my own thoughts. "It seems I haven't done enough. I'm sorry, this is my first true relationship. If I'm erring, tell me," he admitted. I stared in astonishment, trying to process his vulnerable confession. Without warning, he abruptly stood up, one hand resting beside me while the other reached for my phone. In that very moment, he answered an incoming call. He had noticed someone trying to reach me, so near that I could even see the small mole on his eyelid. I felt an unexpected surge of acceptance at his boundary-crossing gesture. The voice on the other end was startled, and after a hesitant pause, I recognized it. It was Connor's mother. "Eliza, is that you? I'm glad you finally answered," she said, her tone a mixture of relief and reproach. Once she and my mother had been as close as sisters. She had always been kind, though at the wedding, she was among those silently watching. "What do you want?" I replied coldly, the warmth between us long extinguished. There was a pause, and then, just as I feared, the call abruptly dropped. Soon after, I heard her weeping softly. "Eliza, I'm so sorry for what happened, for the pain you've endured." Her voice was laden with sorrow, as if she too had been betrayed and humiliated. Out of respect for the bond we once shared, I let her speak. She explained that her family's company was in dire straits, and that they had no choice but to orchestrate a marriage between Connor and Fiona. She pleaded with me for forgiveness and implored me not to allow the rumors to spread. I was baffled. How could I possibly understand her meaning? Logan, who had been silent until then, interjected. "Did you really think she was an easy target just because she's an orphan? You know exactly what you did." His resonant voice carried an unmistakable authority that few could match. Whether it was out of guilt or something else entirely, his words left no room for ambiguity. In response, Connor's mother abruptly ceased her sobbing and hung up. "While you were asleep, I had someone investigate the matter," Logan continued. "The circulating rumors were also my doing." I blinked in confusion as he mentioned my sleep, retrieving my phone. I opened Instagram only to find it inundated with notifications. Although yesterday's wedding had been intimate and attended mostly by strangers, someone had posted a video of the ceremony accompanied by a sensational caption. Best man becomes groom. Cheating scoundrel brings ex-fiancée to his own wedding, publicly relegating her to friend status. The comments beneath were a jumble of disbelief and bitter declarations of lost love. Rewatching the wedding footage and hearing Connor and Fiona's parting words, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. Connor and I had shared over 20 years together, and had been romantically involved for 5 of them. Everyone who knew us had proclaimed we were soulmates. When my parents died and our family company was seized, Connor and his kin had been steadfast in their support. And yet this very man, who had pledged eternal love, had now abandoned me for a new paramour, forcing me to bear witness to his wedding. A merciless twist of fate. Earlier I had been bluffing, but now Logan's words pierced me. Your family's downfall might not have been mere misfortune. His statement stunned me further. And I couldn't help but recall the distraught reaction of Connor's mother in that moment. Memories of the devastation following my parents' passing flooded back. Time so dark I had scarcely survived. Connor had been my lifeline. The thought of his kindness being a mere facade, of my entire life being a lie, made my heart shatter anew. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you back then, Logan murmured, but had I been, I would have uncovered any foul play. He explained that he had ventured abroad during his junior year, and had only returned last year. Hardly a circumstance I could fault him for. Seated beside him, I felt his warmth envelop me. Even as Connor and I, despite years of companionship, had only shared fleeting intimacies, I had doubted his love. But he had always claimed to respect me too deeply to force intimacy prematurely. Yet what had transpired with Logan that previous night was an act of reckless abandon, a moment when passion had overridden caution. Despite the closeness we had experienced, I still felt an undercurrent of discomfort, wriggling away ever so slightly. Stop moving, Logan ordered in a tone that brooked no argument. His words, delivered in a blunt, almost harsh manner, left me frozen. Logan, if you touch me, I protested, but his gentle kiss on the back of my ear quelled my fears. Don't worry, he promised. I won't disturb you for the next couple of days. I marveled at the blunt honesty in his voice. It cut through the confusion, leaving me momentarily distracted from the secrets of Connor and his family. Logan's estate, reminiscent of a private menagerie, was replete with exotic animals that he introduced with affectionate pride. I had always noticed that cats and dogs seemed drawn to me, but I had never imagined that even the larger creatures would exhibit such curiosity. When a majestic lion flopped onto its back and allowed me to gently rub its belly, I couldn't help but feel a pang of envy for Logan's lavish lifestyle. Just as my hand caressed the lion's mane, Logan, fresh from ending a phone call, scooped me up. That's a male lion, he noted matter-of-factly, as both the animal and I exchanged bewildered glances. It took me a moment to realize that Logan's tone had taken on a tint of jealousy toward the lion's assertive presence. Over the next 3 days at the estate, Logan, ever mindful of my boredom, whisked me away on his private plane to inspect his various properties. Under the guise of pretense, he spent the following month taking me on whirlwind trips. By the 5th flight, I realized that not once had he allowed me any quiet time from takeoff to landing. By the end of the journey, my legs had grown weak at the mere sight of an airplane. During this period, I received several calls from a person known only as D. Logan. Having caught me answering one call, glared and promptly blocked all of Connor's contact details on my phone. When yet another unknown number called, he repeated the action, treating it almost like a game. Upon my return to the country, Logan dropped me off right at my door. I have something urgent to handle, he said. Pack your things. I'll come pick you up shortly. He had mentioned abroad that he wanted me to move in with him once we returned. Although he had always been accommodating, his insistence now was particularly firm. I can't sleep without you, he declared. Even after a month together, I still struggled to adjust to Logan's direct manner. I refrained from arguing immediately, reflecting instead on how he had navigated life until now. I recalled that the door lock to the house I was staying in retained Connor's fingerprint data stored as a backup. Before entering, I deleted his record and changed the password, thinking that the house, once purchased for me by Connor's mother after my family's collapse, should now truly belong to me. Most of the furnishings had been bought jointly by Connor and me, so regardless of perspective, my memories of him remained indelible. Logan informed me that the investigation into Connor and his family was progressing. The tragic circumstances surrounding my parents' deaths were indeed intertwined with their machinations. I exhaled deeply at the revelation. When we meet again, he vowed quietly, we'll be enemies. I'll leave all my memories with Connor behind, except for those tied to my parents. Resolute, I packed a few clothes into my suitcase. Just as I was about to call Logan to inform him that I was heading over, I heard the unmistakable sound of someone repeatedly entering the wrong password at my door. Bang, bang, bang. The intruder's persistence grew. A voice then resonated from the other side. Eliza, I know you're in there. Let's talk. Before I could respond, the door was slammed open with a resounding crash. I watched in horror as the door was gradually torn apart with each forceful strike. Desperation seized me as I reached for my phone and saw a message from Logan. I dialed him immediately. The moment the door burst open, Logan answered with urgency. Hurry. Come save me. On the threshold stood Connor, flanked by an unfamiliar man wielding sticks. What's happening? I managed to croak, terrified. Don't be afraid. I'll be there soon. For now, hide. Logan's frantic voice crackled over the phone. I glimpsed the malice in Connor's eyes, his tone deceptively calm as he beckoned. Eliza, come here. Let's talk. His words sent chills down my spine. What is there to discuss? I stuttered, unable to comprehend why he would resort to such measures. Then with an unsettling calm he inquired. Why are you with Logan? What exactly is your relationship with him? I was taken aback by how immediately he had broached the subject. It's exactly as you suspect, I replied, my voice laced with anger. Just end things with him and act as if nothing happened. I've already transferred the house into your name, Connor continued in a tone that bordered on condescension. A bitter realization struck me. I had never truly understood Connor. What do you mean by that? Do you expect me to be your mistress? He laughed bitterly. Don't put it like that, he added. I never chose marriage for myself. Everything I said to you back then was dictated by Fiona's demands. The one I love is you. I could barely contain my fury. After publicly rejecting me, he now expected me to simply remain silent? Who gave you the nerve? I shouted. Who granted him the audacity? I demanded. Break up with Logan. Whatever happened between you two, I couldn't care less. Connor's expression twisted into something fierce as he tried to close the distance, extending his arms as if to embrace me. I recoiled in disgust and slapped him. At that moment, the unfamiliar man with the phone brandished it, pointing it squarely at both of us. I had no inkling of their intentions, but my instincts screamed that things were about to escalate disastrously. I've loved you for so many years and never once dared to lay a hand on you, Connor hissed. But now that Logan has edged in, don't be frightened. I'll go easy on you later. With that, he peeled off his shirt. Seizing the opportunity, I attempted to escape, only to be forcefully pulled back into Connor's arms by the man with the phone. Connor, if you so much as touch me, I swear I'll kill you, I shrieked. Suddenly, a piercing scream rang out from the side. Connor froze, turning to see what had transpired. In that moment, several men dressed in black stormed in, unleashing a barrage of punches and kicks upon both Connor and the stranger. I collapsed onto the floor, tears streaming down my face, as the melee slowly subsided. One of the black-clad enforcers approached me cautiously. I'm so sorry, Mississippi. We arrived late. Mr. Logan is on his way. There's no need to be afraid, he explained in a curt tone. At last, I began to comprehend. Logan had always employed bodyguards for protection. After dropping me off earlier, he had dispatched some of his men, but he hadn't anticipated that Connor would somehow slip through the security net in under half an hour. By the time Logan burst through the door, I was huddled on the sofa, struggling to appear composed. Without hesitation, he swept me into his arms, nearly smothering me in his relief. Thank God you're safe, he murmured fervently. Which hand did Connor touch you with? I'll have my revenge and chop it off. His promise drove away my lingering terror, and I looked up to meet his eyes. As he kissed my face passionately, I wrapped my arms around him in response, finally realizing that with Logan by my side, I could face anything, even if the ghosts of the past still lingered. Later that morning, as Connor was unceremoniously tossed aside at his front door, a bodyguard remarked in a low tone that Connor's mother had fainted from shock, and that Fiona had nearly suffered a miscarriage. The investigation into events from years past was nearing its climax, and I was scheduled to meet someone who held the key to those long-buried truths. Moments earlier, I had narrowly prevented further harm to myself. Logan's concern for me had always been unwavering. In his panicked eyes, I found an endearing vulnerability, and against all odds it was oddly comforting. The following day, an article exploded across the trending list. Its title read, "Former classmate kills for money, steals family fortune." When I first glimpsed it on my phone, my brows furrowed in disbelief. The piece meticulously dissected the dubious circumstances surrounding my parents' untimely accident, scrutinizing every detail. Only after reading it in full did I come to realize just how many hidden secrets lay buried beneath the surface of my past. The article revealed that my grandfather had been a renowned professor of pharmaceutical chemistry and that my parents, along with Connor's mother, had been his devoted students. Connor's father, once a businessman, had shifted into pharmaceuticals after his wife's expertise gave him an unexpected edge, leading to exponential growth in their wealth. It was Connor's mother who had extended an invitation to my parents to join their company. At that time, my parents had been researchers at a prestigious institute. My father had always harbored dreams of a more promising future for me, and that invitation sparked an idea. He pulled his resources, and both he and my mother left their jobs to pursue a business venture of their own. A heated argument even ensued between Connor's mother and my own, as the cutthroat pharmaceutical industry beckoned with its promise of vast profits. In an ironic twist, my father, having developed a revolutionary but risky drug, had casually mentioned it to Connor's parents during a dinner. Ambitious and desperate to salvage their company during a financial crisis, Connor's father had repeatedly attempted to buy the formula, only to be rebuffed. In a calculated move, he orchestrated a tragic accident that cost my parents their lives. I had majored in art in college, an entirely different world from the family business, yet following my parents' death, their company spiraled into a series of misfortunes, many of which were later revealed to be engineered by Connor's family. Reading on, I recalled the home I had once shared, a dwelling that now felt like a monument to guilt, courtesy of Connor's mother. The article also delved into the scandal triggered by the drug produced from that fateful formula. A scandal that had been hushed up for years by bribing those affected. But now, the number of adverse incidents had skyrocketed since the collapse of their empire. I had, by then, detached myself from the murky world of business. I remained oblivious to the extent of the dark deeds Connor's family had committed to cover up the scandal until the article laid it all bare. In a cruel twist of fate, Fiona's family had manipulated Connor into a hasty marriage. Fiona, with a perverse satisfaction, not only prevented Connor from breaking up with me but also forced him to announce the separation at the wedding, all for the sake of her family's ambitions. Connor's repeated assurances of love, the declarations he had made to me up until the day before the wedding, now struck me as nothing but deceit. I recalled with revulsion the times he had clung to me, whispering "I love you" in desperate tones. It was all revolting. Then, as if on cue, Logan's hand brushed gently across my eyes, and he drew me into a tender kiss. "I'm glad you haven't been crying," he whispered softly. Despite the revelations of the past, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I no longer harbored anger. "I need to see my parents," I murmured. "They deserve to know the truth now that all these villains have been exposed." Logan's expression turned resolute. "The wind is fierce atop the mountain. Stay in the car for a moment while I speak with them alone," he said with solemn determination. Reluctantly, I stepped away into the cool night air. I was on the verge of succumbing to sleep when Logan returned, slightly unsteady. "I've been drinking." "You drive us home," he admitted, opening the passenger door for me. "You didn't share a drink with my parents, did you?" I inquired. He only nodded, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. During the ride home, I peppered him with questions about what he had conveyed to my parents, but he merely offered a mysterious smile. "This is a private conversation between me and your parents," he replied curtly. I couldn't pry further. Later that day, news broke that Connor's parents had been arrested. Amidst the excitement, I found myself consuming far more snacks than usual. Unexpectedly, as I was mid-burp, Logan, ever impulsive, got down on one knee and proposed to me. "Why today?" I asked, perplexed. "You're joyful and I want to make you even happier," he responded, his usually blank expression betraying a hint of nervous anticipation. I extended my hand, silently inviting him to place the ring on my finger. After standing, he received a kiss from me, one that still clung to the crumbs of my earlier meal. Logan seemed unperturbed by the recent chaos involving Connor, who had by that point been released after giving his statement. Rumors swirled that Connor had been slapped publicly by Fiona multiple times, and that the two were on the brink of divorce. I, however, had neither the time nor the energy to care about their marital strife, for Logan had already set our wedding date for the end of the month, a mere fortnight away. As someone who had once belonged to the ranks of the privileged, I was now experiencing the undeniable force of wealth. Rumors abounded that Logan's family was as rich as a nation, and witnessing it firsthand confirmed the exaggeration. Despite the short preparation time, Logan spared no expense to ensure our wedding was nothing short of perfect. During our selection of wedding dresses, he suddenly remarked, "A fine wedding gown must be uniquely crafted." His remark was the one area where he felt less than confident. Our wedding was arranged in haste, almost a flash affair, and I couldn't believe that in under 2 months, I was agreeing to marry the man beside me. Mother already gifted me the most important jewelry, I recalled, and dresses and other trappings are mere accessories. As long as you find me beautiful, that's all that matters. Logan's family possessed a priceless set of emerald jewelry, passed down through generations, now bestowed upon the daughter-in-law as a token of approval and confidence. After trying on several extravagant gowns, I was utterly exhausted. Sensing my fatigue, Logan allowed me to choose the dress that best suited my personality. Despite his well-known pollen allergy, he insisted on having flowers at the wedding. He even planned to have fresh blooms airlifted from overseas. I intervened, worried that I might soon become a widow, and suggested replacing them with preserved ones. Once he understood the symbolism behind my suggestion, Logan ordered only the finest preserved flowers. He even collaborated with the wedding planners to design a garden-themed venue, replete with those very blooms. The ceremony was to be held in the city of my birth. "I was concerned the venue might be too remote for your parents to attend," Logan admitted. I felt neither tears nor sorrow when I learned the full truth of my past. I remained stoic when introducing Logan to my parents. Yet, when he finally uttered the words that made me weep, a confession of love and relief, it was the first time I allowed tears to flow freely. Soon media outlets descended upon us. Logan's mother, ever the strategist, distributed cash gifts to reporters in hopes of securing flattering photographs of our wedding, a moment meant to capture the union of Logan and me after my parents' demise. I had lost contact with many friends for various reasons, so when I recognized familiar faces in the audience, I was both astonished and overjoyed. I longed to proclaim to the world, "I'm marrying you." Sensing my emotional reaction, Logan leaned in and whispered in my ear as the officiant declared that the groom could now kiss the bride. On impulse, I lifted my veil and captured his neck in a kiss. Laughter from the crowd snapped Logan out of his reverie as he pulled me closer, intensifying our kiss. I later overheard chatter on social media. Apparently, someone had posted a picture of our kiss. While rumors about Connor swirled, I learned that his family's assets had been frozen and that, just last week, he and Fiona had moved into a new home, only for him to subsequently empty it. Fiona was reportedly so incensed that she had lost her baby. Amid the chaos outside their residence, I heard an ambulance arriving while Connor stood motionless among the wreckage. After bidding farewell to a final group of guests, Logan returned to me. Disregarding the disapproving stares, he attempted to envelop me in his arms once more. I glared at him until he reluctantly released his hold. Noticing his subdued mood, I reached out and kissed his cheek. Logan's spirits visibly lifted. From now on, I resolved, no more will trivialities or unpleasant people disturb my happiness. All I want is to make you, the man beside me, truly happy. And so our story drew to a close,